The following episode contains or may contain spoilers. So if you're spoiler sensitive, maybe beware.
Yeah, you sensitive people.
Get out.
No, get in. Welcome to the Fandom Zone. 3 fans, 1 podcast, and a sea of comics. I'm Noah.
Kayla? I was going to say Jared.
Nice try, Kayla. But you can never be Jared. Unless you change your name to Jared, and then you could be Jared. Those are the rules.
Is your name Jared?
No.
No, I meant Jared.
My name is Jared as fuck.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
You think we'd be better at that?
it's never going to happen. It never, ever will happen. So
Not with that attitude.
So this episode, I was having trouble even coming up with how to even say this. So we're talking about DC animated movies. I'm just going to come out right and say it.
Nice.
Yay.
I thought the property and this specific topic is big enough, seeing how there's 36, 39, 30 million DC movies compared to...
We could do a 5-point, series on this. If we wanted.
Yeah. I mean, if we wanted to do every single movie.
No, fuck that. We could just talk about... I'm sure that... the fact they haven't done a documentary about this, phenomenon in the world of comic books and cinema is already crazy.
True.
Hey, for listeners, don't jump on that. We claimed the idea first.
Yeah, exactly. Writer's credits.
Coming
Writer's
soon,
credits.
the Phantom Zones documentary of the DC animated universe. Yeah, so...
But we're too small potatoes, so they don't, we can't interview anybody. So it's just us talking about, I think what Bruce Timm would like to say is this.
I mean, accurate.
Kevin Conroy's experience has been...
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's so much meat in this. There's so many diverse. Diverse. I wouldn't say diverse because there's 30 Batman movies out of the 36. But
It's still diverse. He's just in a lot of times. They just throw him in shit. A lot of times.
Yeah. Or it's
Batman's a samurai now.
oh my god.
Or it'll be a Firestorm movie, but Ronnie Raymond is wearing a Batman t-shirt. They're like, oh, it's Batman and Firestorm or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, DC has come out with so many animated movies from, like Kayla just mentioned, the Batman. What was it? Ninja?
Samurai one.
Yeah, it's Batman Ninja, which I wasn't too big of a fan on, only because of the animation, and then all the way to just various Justice League movies like Justice League Doom and stuff like that. So, I don't know. Is there something specific you guys find that DC does right with these and why they're so successful in making so many?
Yeah. They fucking do them. That would be the major... It beleaguers the imagination to figure out what the hell is up with Marvel in terms of their animated movies. It's insane. That's what exactly, because that's the thing. I mean, Marvel's done a few, and they've been decent enough to I think warrant making more and being better at it. I mean, here's what kills me is that when you compare Marvel and DC in terms of cinema, very clearly Marvel has pulled ahead, but it's kind of arbitrary. It could have gone different ways. Some of it's just about certain successes they had, and moreover, DC tried, and they're still trying, and they've had a few successes. Marvel has just decided not to be in this game, and I do not understand that for the life of me.
Yeah, there's that. I see that meme a lot with comic book groups, and I even think somebody shared it in our group a while back. And it's Marvel versus DC, and it's Marvel cinematic, and the bar's all the way up. But then it's on the DC side, it's DC animated movies, DC video games, DC this, DC that. It's DC has really put their energy in a lot of things outside of the cinematic universe.
Focusing on more multimedia.
Yeah. And
But to me, this is the one that stands out so crazily.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the video games are amazing as well. I especially because I don't. What has Marvel made in video games? It's just been like Ultimate Alliance, right?
They just got Spider-Man.
Yeah, oh,
you
and
guys,
Spider-Man.
You don't remember or remember Warner Brothers owns DC, and they also own a movie studio. But
yeah.
Marvel sold off all its properties for different kinds of like media.
Mm-hmm.
So they like, I don't think Marvel up until maybe recently, I still don't know. I don't think they don't have the rights to Sony or to Spider-Man in the video game space. So you know what I mean? Like it's sort of like whatever, I don't know who like PlayStation wants to do with it or whatever. So I think some of the reason that Marvel has failed in like those endeavors is because they just don't actually make money off their characters until, like I said, maybe recently.
Well, I mean, that Spider-Man game that came out was fucking amazing, and
it was amazing.
This Marvel, what is it? The Avengers video game coming out next year also looks amazing. So we'll see.
Marvel Ultimate Alliance is super strong too. If you ever get to play that game, like that's like both of those are really good.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Okay, so back to the movies because we could do an entire episode on video games.
No, that's true.
I totally could. Let's do that in the future.
Just on the.
But my point is just that it's if you're a Marvel fan, especially, it's like really frustrating. I'm a DC fan too, but I mean, it's just frustrating that they don't make these movies. And then the other thing to segue into the other conversation, Marvel doesn't have Bruce Timm. Like that's just a big part of it. I'm sorry, that guy is amazing.
Yeah, accurate.
I mean, even comparing the animated movies that Marvel's come out with the DC movies, I just feel like the DC ones are like better voice acted, animated, has more interesting plot stuff. They're willing to take more risks, and I think that just pays off in the long run.
And that's
also called money.
Yeah, well, not even that. It just seems like they have more faith in it. You know, it looks like you know some of the Marvel ones, because I like the Doctor Strange animated one, but it could be so much better. And I mean, it's you just see that they have more faith in it than obviously the one that just gave up on doing them. But I don't know. I always think it's interesting, kind of comparing them and then seeing how much risk they'll do in the animated ones compared to the movies, at least for the few movies that we have out so far. It's like, they'll have like Big Barda in one of them, but then, you know, be too scared to show the Flash's or Cyborg's origin in an actual movie where they're in. So like, it's always interesting the disconnect between that. So,
but yeah, I think a matter of investment is a huge deal on that. And like I said, I mean, I'm not just going to keep saying this guy's name, but like Bruce Timm is like the Kevin Feige of the DC animated world. And he's like created something amazing. The other thing is that DC has also had some weak ones. You know what I mean? It's not like, it's much like, actually weirdly, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they've invested so much into that world that they've had some misses. It's like, I think that there's been like some ones that I'm like, this is actually kind of crappy. Like, I'll be honest, we might as well like kind of, Justice League War, I don't like that animation. There's been a series of, I have not liked that animation at all. And I just don't think it's like, I think the writing is kind of like, less impressive. It's kind of hard to put my finger on it.
It's a lot like the comic it's based off of, because it's kind of goofy. So like, I get like, it is a weirdly choppy because it's like, it's kind of goofy and then they kind of get serious. And then the animation is a little odd, like, especially when they mix like that 3D and also like hand drawn stuff. I don't know. It is a little,
and they threw Shazam in there, because the movie was coming out, I guess. But I actually think he rounds out the cast really poorly in a way. Like I love Shazam. It's just like he feels like redundant in that team.
Interesting.
They took out Aquaman. That's my secret hatred for that movie.
That's why
it comes to light.
Yeah, that's why it's really good. I just hate it because of that.
Yeah. But my point is just that they've had. It's not like everything they've done has been this magnum opus, but they've done enough, and enough of them have been like really amazing distillations of these characters. And I wanted to add to that, like, let's see what you guys think. But I think what Batman the Animated Series and Superman what is it? Just Superman the animated series? Is that what that series is called? Yeah. Okay. And then Justice League, like what they were really good at is just distilling the characters that they dealt with from the comics into these just perfect essences, and then writing relatively strong stories for them to go through. And I feel like that's just been expanded throughout much of the DC animated cinematic universe, I guess. Animated cinematic universe, that's clunky.
I would say animated because they don't go into movie theaters.
That's true. Oh, that's right. That's good. Yeah, it's not cinema.
Not cinema. I always like when you look at the stuff. It's like straight to DVD. It's like, yeah, got it. It's just like all of them are straight to DVD. I don't think a single one has been released except for Teen Titans Go.
They say it like they can't wait to get to DVD or Blu-ray. Like straight to DVD. We couldn't even get in their way. They were so excited to get to Blu-ray. They just raced there.
I think because in general, I really do like the DC animated universe. One of the things I find frustrating is that sometimes they'll get close to the plot, but they'll not do it correctly. Like, I have a problem with the most recent Batman ones. Even though Nightwing is very present, a lot of his story is getting shoved to side for Damian Wayne.
Well,
Court of Owls is one of my favorite stories in the comics, and they did not correctly adapt to that. They just limited it to Batman, Nightwing, and Damian was the center stage Robin, even though it's Nightwing's story, and actually all of the other Robins appear in that story, so it would have been really cool. And I feel like that's a lot of the times what they do is they'll get like close to the story and then just change random details. I don't know if it's due to like character popularity at the time, but I think they'd be a little more successful in my heart if they would just do the story that they were basing it off of.
Yeah, I think that is, I mean, as much as I love Damian, that is true, especially with something like Court of Owls, where you find out, I mean, that big twist, and then, you know, that he's more intricate to it than, you know, you're led to believe and stuff. It is funny. Like, I mean, you would think that it's animated and they have the time to do this and they're already making it. You know, it's not like a big budget movie. And with what they did with, you know, The Dark Knight Returns, how they made it into 2 parts, that was a great adaptation of that story because they took their time with it. So, yeah, like, exactly. You would think that with a big story like Court of Owls that they would do the same thing. It's always interesting the choices they decide to pick and choose from it. And it's like, it's either like weird choices where it's like you're already like right there in the room. Like, why did you make that dog, you know, brown instead of blonde or something? You know what I mean? It's just like, it's so weird. Like, you already have it here. Like, you changed it for some reason.
Yeah, but I mean, we've kind of discussed this before in different places, but I think a lot of that's just production stuff and studio constraints. You know, so, I mean, I sort of agree, like, a lot of the problems of adaptation, like, for a lot of superhero movies we've talked about have been, like, they've cut them down needlessly, and it's sort of like, well, why would you do that? And I always want to answer back, like, well, the director didn't want to. You know what I mean? Like, the director wanted it to be probably a
shitty
2.5 hour movie. No, I would hope not. But I mean, that's because I mean that's how it usually is. Like the directors. I mean, I get this is animation, so I can't say how it is. Like obviously with like when it's a live action thing, directors shoot a shit ton of footage and then they have to edit it down, and then like usually the studio is pushing to get it shorter and things like that.
That's where you get the director cut from.
Yeah. So I would just say I imagine a lot of these like a lot of the issues of like I don't know, they failed to include these characters, or they like compress the story down. I'm sure a lot of that has to do with just getting into like time constraint and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, whatever, fine.
But I think we should also, I mean, like the frequency that these come out in is just crazy.
Oh,
and I know, because it's one thing to say like, okay, there's been 36 films, and how many years has that been? I can't remember. I mean, what, like the mid-aughts, something like that? When they really started
I think they, I mean, that sounds about right. They started pumping them out really, like a lot, especially right before like Man of Steel was coming out. And then when Man of Steel came out, they came out with a bunch more. I mean, it's weird. They kind of do it in pockets. It's like 1 year, there'll be like 2 to 3, and there'll be nothing for like 2 years, and then there'll be more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I see what you're saying. They come out in like spurts or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think I think what's really exciting about the animated features too, in relation to the live action. I keep trying to come up with a good term. The live action is that like there's so many different interpretive problems when you do live action stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There, you know what I mean. You're going for a general audience because you're trying to put it in the theater. And the appearances all have to be different, and like the storytelling is different. But I think what's not to be underestimated and what's really cool about these animated movies is that it's a comic book audience. It's fan audiences. So I mean, even from the biggest comic readers, they're probably way more invested in the lore and the style and the storytelling of comic books than general audiences. So it opens them up to do so many different kinds of stories. Like I would argue that almost any kind of, especially successful story in a comic book, it's very conceivable that they could make that into an animated feature.
Oh yeah, I mean they made Batman Bad Blood into one, which is relatively probably one of the weakest ones out of the entire lineup. But I mean, I would have never thought they would have made that into like a movie, an animated movie. So, I mean... But
then when they take on the pressures of bigger stories, I'm horrifying thinking of The Killing Joke.
Oh my God.
It's like, why?
But see, that's a prime
You didn't like that adaptation?
No.
Oh my God, no.
No.
Oh my God, why would they change the relationship between Bruce and Barbara? That's creepy as fuck. Yeah,
that's probably that's the thing that kind of made me... I was teetering on it a little bit, and then once that happened, I was like, okay, that's a point where it's really unnecessary to where it literally doesn't add to the story. It takes away from it.
Explain it for the listener and myself. I don't remember. I've seen it. I don't remember the change.
Barbara Gordon and Bruce Wayne never had sex in the comics. In the movie, they're in a relationship, which is really, really, really creepy. Considering, I don't know,
is that
Barbara
creepy?
Was dating one of his sons.
Yes, I mean, it is kind of creepy because, like, most of the time you're under the assumption. I mean, obviously, Batgirl's not in this, but most of the time you're under the assumption that people that are in his family, he's kind of adopted, and he's like this father figure. So, for them to be in a relationship, and she's relatively young. In this adaptation of the movie, like the way they drew her and the way she kind of acted, she's relatively young. And also the way she was kind of like, we're in a relationship and he's like, we're not. It was just really weird. The whole thing was, I don't know, just kind of poorly planned out.
I must have blocked that out of my memory.
Good.
It was that bad.
Yeah. Lucky.
Well, I was going to say, the only thing I would say in slight defense is that, like, I don't think of Batgirl as his daughter at all.
No.
Like, the Robin's fine, but, like, it's like, because she's got Commissioner Gordon, unless it's like a My Two Dads situation or something like that, like, I've never...
There's still a freakish age gap there.
No, and I didn't say... That's not... I was saying the Robins are like that, but you have this kind of assumption that people that are in his family, he's kind of like the head of the household. He's like the father figure, not necessarily actually the father. It's just a weird thing. I don't know.
It's more like they're cousins, and that way it's fine that they get it on because they're cousins.
Okay,
so it's fine.
Regardless, they shouldn't still...
I don't know if Lego Batman movie counts as an animated movie, but I fucking love that movie.
Which one?
But they did the same thing there with having Bruce have this crush on Barbara. DC, why do you change things from the comics? They're so good. And like Jared had said, the ones that are straight to DVD, those are mainly picked up by the fans. Like, they know the stories most likely, and they're going to notice those differences. I don't understand what they gather or what they gain by changing things like that and making it even creepier.
Actually, that's a good point.
That's a rare one, though. Like, that to me does not happen much. That's to that level of drama. You know what I mean? Like, there's not like a Batman thing where like Alfred and Jim Gordon have like a weird fetish relationship. You know what I mean? Like, there's just not a lot
I mean,
of,
whenever
like,
you cut like literal storylines out of it that made sense to the plot, and then you piece it together with whatever you want to put in there, kind of like Court of the Owls. And it's like you just got rid of like a good chunk of this story to make way for Damien that like has part in it, but it's not really a Damien story. So like, I mean, it is funny that they do that because, and that's a good point because it's straight to DVD. I mean, where are they advertising this? In the comics where the people are reading them. So it's like, those are the people that are going to watch them, and those are the people that are going to pick up on the differences.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I will say I've noticed a couple, a thing they do, which I've never disliked, but it sort of falls under the category you guys are talking about. A lot of times they'll like compress stories. They'll they'll make a new story, and it's really like sort of 2 or 3 stories.
Yeah,
and it's really common in the cinematic world, in those live action adaptations, where like, you know, when they do Wonder Woman or Iron Man, it might be sort of like their origin story sort of really like takes 3 major stories and like takes elements, but it's way more conspicuous when they do it in the animated world, again, because they're able to translate so closely. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like, why is this Infinity Gauntlet and Civil War at the same time?
Oh, that would be
this
a
is
fucking
weird.
mess.
It's not DC, but that would be strange to appear in a DC movie.
I was going to say, is it a mess because it's a weird mashup, or is it a mess because fucking Marvel can't get their shit together on the animated stage?
Mm-hmm.
DC decides to do with the Infinity War and Civil War in their animated movies just to show Marvel how it's done.
I think that would be great. Where it's like, it's Darkseid and he's got like the Infinity waste basket or something like that. You know, it's like everything. No, we ran out of stories. We did so many stories. We had to come up with new stories. It's not a big deal. Sorry, Marvel.
Okay, before we get into our like ones that we picked, because we did pick ones that we wanted to either spotlight and talk up or talk down. I don't know what these. I'm hoping these 2 picked ones that they liked or didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, most of them are ones I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm curious. So before we do that, I want to say which anime movies are actually coming out, which I am super excited to see. So the first one that's going to be coming out in 2020 is Superman Red Sun. And
hell yeah,
I'm super excited for that. I love when they do the Elseworlds animated ones because I feel like they don't get enough love. And they're also just kind of cuckoo bananas from what we're normally used to. So like, but the next couple ones that are coming out are very Superman heavy. So I don't know if they're just trying to get people geared back up into the Kal-El universe because he might have a movie coming out, or he's not having a movie coming out and they need to get the Superman fix. I don't really know.
Well, it's another. I mean, it is a big weakness that the DC has, and I wish they'd stop doing that. But like, I don't know. Like you mentioned, they've got this world of amazing stories and everything like that, and like the half of these are Superman, and the other 3/4 are Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So it is.
That math doesn't add up.
I know. Well, there's some of it's Batman and Superman, Kayla. So
I mean, good point.
Yeah. No.
Another one that's coming out that I'm so excited for is Justice League Dark Apocalypse War.
Ooh.
So, from what I heard though about this one, it seems like they're going to be using the Justice League Dark that Batman had formed in the last one to kind of be the vehicle for the Darkseid War, which I'm happy if they do it, but not happy if it's pretty much in this movie, if that makes sense. Because Darkseid War is massive. It's huge. That's kind of like doing, I don't know, the Infinity Gauntlet in like a 30-minute movie. Like, it's just not gonna, you can't fit everything. Like, you're not really gonna get the story out. So I'm hesitant with this one.
Strong disagree. I think there's a core story. I think there's a core story there that you could do. Like, and I think that happens if you look at Civil War. That was a gigantic, sprawling crossover, but there was this sort of linear story they told with it. I think a lot of these things where it's like the story is really big in terms of like it's they make it kind of baroque and they go into these different places and like it's really ornate, but like I think a lot of times there is a kind of a core plot that if they adapt that like A to B to C to D that they can kind of do. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Right, but with the team that was not with the Darkseid War. So Justice League
Well,
Dark is going to adapt the Darkseid War storyline.
I'll put it to you this way, because I'll make it more like a question for both of you. Would you rather them adapt something that you love, but it's a less than perfect version, or would you want to wait for the perfect version, but it might be like 5 years?
Wait.
The perfect version.
That's interesting. I might go in the other direction. I think.
It's a Justice League. It's like the core 7 Justice League storyline. It's heavily involved with Diana and everything, and then to have Justice League Dark, which had like a spin-off and a very like they had parts involved with this. But that's what I'm saying. It's just like a completely like, oh, so you're not gonna do Darkseid War, you're gonna do it, but from this perspective is interesting, and I'm not too sure if that's how that's going.
That's how us Thor fans felt about Ragnarok. By the way, it's a great story. It was awesome, but it has nothing to do with the Ragnarok in the comics or whatever. But I'm with you. I get it.
And then
I get it.
The next one that has been said to be released is Superman: Man of Tomorrow. So, like I said, out of 3, all 3 have Superman in them. So.
Can I get 1 Hour Man movie? Just the one single Hour Man, Plastic Man team up movie.
There is one that Plastic Man is going to be made. So there is one
plastic.
There is one that is been rumored to be coming out, and I really hope it's true because it's DC Super Pets.
Why would Noah like that? There's no context or pretext for that at all. I don't get that.
I want to see it, and I need it. So we'll see.
Make it just for you. Instead of straight to DVD, it'll be straight to Noah.
Just one copy. That's it.
Okay. One last question before we get onto the thing. What do you want to see? Animated.
That was my question. I said I had a question, but that's fine.
That was the question?
Yeah.
That's
really
so cool. You guys had the same question.
Yeah. No, it's still my question. What do you No, what who would you go with?
The Sinestro Corps War.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. I want to see it.
That'd be cool looking. It's a great story. Yeah.
I'm
good,
just gonna
solid
go
pick.
with the Robin Wars because it'll all be on the screen together.
Well, I guess I got to do a war one. The Creeper War. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Creeper War, but it's really the fangs and the red boas. Or is that back hair that the Creeper has? It's really I can't tell.
I think so.
I don't know what it is. Anyway, I want to just give me a solid Martian Manhunter one. I think I like he's such a cool character, especially animated. Like the Justice League show like made me fall in love with John because he's just such a cool dynamic thing with the animation, the shape changing and stuff like that. And he's all stoic and he's got cool powers. That's what I want to see.
I also wouldn't mind seeing this one.
You
would
only get one.
Well, just real quick because I was gonna pick it and then it didn't, and then I panicked and then I picked the one I picked and then I wanted so. But I think with The Long Halloween, I would love to see this adapted, but I would really want the art to kind of stick around, or at least try to do something like that.
They've got a good history with that.
Yeah. So I would love to see that.
Because they've adapted something that was Frank Quietly's art and stuck really close to Frank Quietly. And then they've done the same thing with Ed McGuinness.
True.
Like where they just straight up animated their stuff. That's is another thing we didn't mention, but that is like they've got a real good history of just adapting what you would think was like almost impossible to adapt. Like very original style. Really cool stuff.
All right.
Let's get to it. Okay. I'm going to kick it off. And for a few reasons, but I think mostly because we've dealt with this story the most on the podcast already. So I'm going to be kind of, I'm going to be kind of brief with it. But I mean, a lot of people, it's my first pick is Batman Under the Red Hood.
And that's when everybody stopped listening because they're like, this is the 70th time.
Yes, I know. And moreover, this is like it's also good to get it out of the way because like it was definitely going to be on one of our picks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because this is just such a strong story. There's a lot that goes into that. I do want to throw a little details out for you. It's directed by Brandon Vietti. Guess who it was produced by?
Who?
Bruce Timm, obviously.
Oh, yeah. I just assumed that he kind of has his hands in everything with the DC animated universe.
Yeah, it's his thing. But anyway, but the one thing I will say that this one didn't have for me was the Batman voice actors that I've really come to love. It's got it was written by Judd Winnick, by the way. Anyway, but it's Bruce Greenwood, who's my second favorite Batman voice actor, by the way, in these things. Also, when I looked this is really funny. When I looked at the cast and crew on IMDb, after every actor, it said voice. It's like, yeah, no, it's an animated feature. I know none of these people are cartoons in real life. Anyway, but John DiMaggio played the Joker. He's my least favorite Joker. I hate his Joker in this. I'm sorry. It's just like, I mean, I'm sure he's a lovely man and a talented person, but like every time the Joker's in this, like it's just kind of screechingly uncharismatic, and I don't know. I didn't like it. But
the only part that I like with him in this movie is when he's in that house that's like upside down. When Batman's like doing that monologue, it's so good. Okay, go on. Sorry.
No, it's true. I mean, and he's okay. He's not without his merits, and he's okay. But I'm just compared to some other people that have done it. Anyway, Jason Todd is played by Jensen Ackles. Did you guys know that? The guy the guy that like Supernatural. I've never seen that show. I've heard it's awful. But anyway. No,
okay, I'm done with this episode. I can't. I'm done.
No, I know you like it. Okay. Nightwing was Neil Patrick Harris. Which, how do you not love that in both directions?
I just want to see all of these people actually in live action versions of their voice acting.
Well, it gets okay. So this is where it gets weird. The thing about the DC animated, they throw money at actors like crazy, or at least they must, because they get really good people to be in these, even at low level characters. This one might blow your mind. Do you know who plays Alfred in there? Or sorry, Ra's al Ghul in this?
Who?
Jason Isaacs. If you don't know who that is, that's the guy that plays Lucius Malfoy.
Yeah.
He plays Ra's al Ghul. His voice is in this for like 12 seconds, but it's like this huge actor. And then Gary Cole plays Commissioner Gordon. And Gary Cole is the bad guy from Pineapple Express. He was like famous from Office Space. You know what I mean? Like, okay, anyway, I'm just, every time I read one of these IMDb's, I'm like, how the fuck did they isn't that guy dead? How did they get Sir Laurence Olivier to be in this, to do like a cab driver? This is insane. Okay, cool. But anyway, so if you don't know, we've talked about this before. Under the Red Hood is essentially the story of Jason Hood coming back from the dead. It was the second Robin. Jason Hood, the Red Tide. Jason Hood, the Red Tide. It's a way better name. Jason Hood. Jason Todd, the debut of the Red Hood, comes back from the dead. He was killed by the Joker. Is the second Robin. This is the story of him coming back from the dead. And I think if you want to hear more about that story itself, listen to our Robins episode. We cover it pretty well. Which is to say, I cover it pretty well. Anyway, but yeah, so one of the things that's so good about this story is, one, it follows very closely to the main story in the comic. Like, that's also a kind of sprawling, like, crossover in the Batman universe when it came out, Under the Red Hood. But this, they sort of follow that linear story. And what I love about this is that it's actually a decent mystery if you've never read this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a real, like, the way the story basically functions is that this new vigilante who's like taking over the drug racket in Gotham called the Red Hood is starts offing capos and like mafia people or whatever. Batman chases him, tries to catch him, finds out this guy's really good and very familiar. He is taking over the Black Mask's like what do you call it? Like racket, I guess, or like territory. They have a kind of gang war, and eventually Batman finds out that the Red Hood turns out to be Jason, like I said, Jason Todd. And it's this deeply emotional thing. And what I think is really compelling about the story is very, very like real emotion and very much like intriguing motivation. And they don't reveal it till almost the very end. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about? Like, there's the final scene where Jason Todd and Bruce are like, there's the confrontation in that crappy apartment or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you like open up he opens up a closet and you see the Joker, and Jason's like, this is whole thing. I mean, I'm paraphrasing very loosely here, but like this whole thing is like, why didn't you kill this guy? He killed me. And I don't know. I just think it's brilliantly executed. So you guys like it. You like it, right?
I think.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite DC animated anything because the adaptation is so close. Again, they didn't really stray. They didn't add Damien.
Hey,
Yeah.
it's okay to add a little Damien, even when he's not needed.
You know what they say? Damien is a powerful spice. Too much ruins the dish.
Hey, no, I don't like that. I mean, I think it's all the emotional weight in this one that did it for me. Like, of course, it's great, it's actiony and stuff, but I just think that whole.
Sorry.
Anyway, I just think that the whole notion of him pretty much begging and pleading Batman to give him an answer on why he didn't kill the person that killed, I mean, essentially one of his adoptive sons, is a huge thing on, it's a question that a lot of people wanted to know. Like, why do you not kill this guy?
Yeah. And Batman gives him a pretty compelling answer, which is something to the effect of,
No.
you know, if I cross that line, I wouldn't be able to stop. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
And, yeah.
That's a good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and if you think about it, central to what Batman is like once Batman becomes a killer, the whole thing is done. Like, because Joker's awful, but 3/4 of his like rogues gallery needs some killing, probably, you know. And then Batman's
I mean, so
just
one
the
would be
Punisher.
fine. Just dip your
Well,
toe,
that's
dip your
the
toe
problem.
in
You
that
start
murder
with
water.
one.
Just dip it.
You kill. It's killing people is like potato chips. Okay, I'll tell you that. Sorry. Okay, but anyway, so yeah, the story is just execute. I think one of the reasons that people really love this is that there's just not a flaw on it. Everything is executed so well. It's a tight story. The action scenes in this are just really fun too, and that just this added extra that almost doesn't even need to be there. There's the Batman Nightwing Amazo fight, which is just, it kicks things off. And it's funny, it is in the comic, but it's amazing that it made it into this because it really is kind of ancillary to the story, but it is such a cherry on top. And then also there's the Five, which I don't remember from the comics, but they were basically assassins that Black Mask hires.
Were they in the
Batman
comic?
and Red Hood. What's that?
Were they in the comic?
I can't remember. I mean, they don't look familiar to me, but I read the story like literally when it came out, and then like I've gone back and read pieces of it, you know, for the podcast, honestly. But it would have probably just been a particular scene like in this movie. And it's just so fun to watch Batman and Red Hood kicking the shit out of these Black Mask assassins. Oh, and I guess the last thing I'll say about this, it's a good detective story. Which I love when Batman isn't just the super cool ninja guy, when he actually does do a certain amount of detective work. And it's complete even with its own red herring. When you find out Black Mask really has nothing to do with the story. Like the whole thing, he just needs, like, Red Hood just needs a Black Mask to spring the Joker. Because he's got enough connections in Arkham Asylum to get the Joker out so he can wreak his vengeance against the Joker. It's just really impressive. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Batman under the red tide.
All right. We're done talking about that for at least 2 episodes. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, easily 2.
All right, I think I'm next. So I chose Batman Assault on Arkham.
Woohoo!
I know, yay! I don't know how popular this one is actually, but I really enjoyed it when I watched it, so I was like, I'm gonna talk about it. Basically, the premise is Batman has to protect Gotham from a dirty bomb planted by the Joker somewhere. He has no idea where it is. And also deal with Amanda Waller's team, the Suicide Squad. So there's a lot going on in this movie. Basically, like I said, the main drive is Batman's trying to discover where Joker hid this dirty bomb. And then the Suicide Squad, on orders of Amanda Waller, are trying to hunt down the Riddler's staff because he has a flash drive that he downloaded some information on Amanda Waller, and she wants it back. So she's just like, go break into Arkham and get the Riddler staff.
It was a knock list, if I remember correctly, which is like a list of CIA identities or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry.
So the Suicide Squad in this movie, because obviously that cast always changes, is Deadshot, Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, Black Spider, King Beast, Killer Frost, King Shark. If you haven't heard of some of these, it's because they die.
They do.
But yeah, one of the main things I really like about this story is that the Riddler actually has a very important part of the story. And as everyone knows, he's my favorite Batman villain. So, he's put into Arkham at the beginning of the story. Batman has to save him from Amanda Waller. It's like, go in Arkham, you're safe there. Said no one ever except Batman. And then, I mean, like, throughout the movie, you've realized that while everyone else in the Suicide Squad is just trying to find his staff, when they do, it's empty. Killer Frost has a separate mission of trying to kill the Riddler. That was what Amanda Waller wanted all the time. But then when the Riddler is sprung free due to chaos, he's the one that also helps them get rid of those implants in their neck with the like the nanobots that'll explode once Amanda Waller pushes that button, a la the movie. And then another thing I really like about this is it's very classic Batman. Spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't seen this, but he was Black Spider all along.
Yeah.
And the Riddler's the one that points it out. He's literally like, ha ha ha, because Black Spider's fine after someone sets it off. And I think that's the one that kills Shark Man.
Yeah.
Shark.
Yeah, King Shark.
And it's like, why is Black Spider fine? And then the Riddler's like, you fools, that's Batman. He's been Batman all along.
I hope he just didn't actually know and he was just guessing. He was like...
Either way is very Riddler.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's a classic Batman move. Yeah. You're all along in disguise.
It's a great scene, too, because, like, they, like, Black Spider and Batman fight.
Yeah.
And it's also a badass fight just on its own. Like, and it's well animated and choreographed and everything like that. And then they make it, like, you think that Black Spider won the fight. Turns out it was Batman, which is great. And it's good. They cast him down on it because when Black Spider kills Batman, in quotations, they're like, I don't know about that. Like, you know, the rest of Arkham, like, him? He did that? Anyway. So, and then later on when it gets revealed, Black Spider, who's in Batman's, like, costume, his head explodes in front of the Joker, which I just think is a great move. Yeah.
It's like one of the best parts of that movie.
Yeah. And then another classic Batman, like, I guess, story trope is Harley and the Joker escaping together despite Harley trying to kill the Joker, like, a couple scenes before.
Yeah.
And stubborn-ass Amanda Waller.
The wall.
Can also be read as dumbass Amanda Waller in some sense, but Amanda Waller just being so intrinsically herself. And then one of the things I really liked about the movie is that the humor is, like, it's really spot on. The Suicide Squad really does bring a dynamic that makes the movie fun. And plus I really like the animation. Like you'd said, the animation for the fight scenes are just really, really good. There are a couple people... Oh, what?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say they leaned into them being villains in this, which I really liked. And this came out after Suicide Squad, the movie, and that movie sucked so bad. Or I don't know if this came out after, but it came out around the same time in like the larger marketing push. And it was just like, oh, this is how they could have made the movie. And it would have been good.
It's the escape people that want, like, what they wanted from the Suicide live action movie. Just watch this. It's great.
Yeah.
The things I didn't really like, there aren't too many, but Harley and Deadshot sleeping together, I'm just kind of really, no. Why?
Gross.
And then it's basically just a lot of fun, like a lot of characters, a lot of weird little mini stories going on, like tied together with really fragile twine. And it basically just means that there's not a very strong plot point all the way through. There's like a whole bunch of ideas, a whole bunch of characters. It's really fun. But again, the story could have been a little bit stronger, especially with all of the ambiguity towards the end. But Batman Asylum Arkham is definitely a pickup.
Yeah, I think that like from a plot standpoint, the thing moves according to a MacGuffin, which is Riddler's staff, and I don't think there's no way to do a MacGuffin right. But I think the general advice when you have a MacGuffin is it needs to be meaningful or tie into the story some way or be symbolic in a meaningful way. When it's arbitrary or random, that's generally not just strong writing. Yeah. And that's kind of the case here. It probably doesn't matter so much just because it's so strong in other ways. But I kind of I noticed that too. That it's like we're doing this all over just some thing that's not even going to matter. Like, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, Assault on Arkham. I did forget to mention director and stuff. So for people wanting to now check it out, it was directed by Jay Olivia and Ethan Spalding, produced by James Tucker. So, surprise there. Written by Heath Corson. Kevin Conroy is Batman, obviously. Troy Baker's in there as the Joker, and he's one of my favorite voice actors, so he does a good job.
That's true. Yeah. I thought you were gonna say, like, for those that want to know who directed it, go watch it. That's what I thought you were gonna say.
I had the information pulled up here, so I might as well.
All right, so my first pick is Superman Batman Apocalypse, and it's kind of just a coincidence that all three of us picked one that has the word Batman in it or is involved with Batman.
It's not a coincidence because, as we had said up top, most of them are Batman.
I know. That's
it's actually harder to find non-Batman related stories.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's like having a bag of marbles and most of them are red, and pulling out a red one and be like, "What a coincidence! This is crazy."
And they're ones that are hard to not mention out of this whole big long 30+ list of movies. So. Superman Batman Apocalypse was directed by Lauren Montgomery, and it was written by Tab Murphy and Jeff Loeb. So pretty strong writing team and creative team there. It has my favorite Superman and Batman in it. So Kevin Conroy and Tim Daly. So, I mean, you just can't really go wrong with those voice actors.
Yeah.
This movie and comic are insane. Like, you get not only Superman and Batman teaming up again, but you get Apocalypse, you get Themyscira, you get the Female Furies, you get Supergirl. I mean, you get so much packed into this movie. And I honestly think it's a very well-written movie and comic. Like, with all of that stuff in there, when you add all these characters in there, it could tend to get messy. Kind of like what you were saying with the Suicide Squad one. There's a lot of characters, there's a lot of side stories and stuff, but if you make it a strong case on why they're all together, it could really come together pretty well. The main point of this movie is Supergirl. She crashes on Earth and Superman discovers her, blah, 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 blah. Same origin story. We're cousins, yay. But Darkseid finds out about it. And he thinks that she would be a good candidate to run the Female Furies, which is a really odd thing for him to, I don't know, I guess think of. Like, you would think, like, I don't know, like, I always thought that was kind of odd. It's like, oh, you know what? She's going to run this group that Granny Goodness has been running.
In his spare time, he's a headhunter.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So, fast forward a bit, he kidnaps her. And Superman and Batman essentially have to go to Apocalypse to rescue her. But with, like, one of my all-time favorite team-ups ever is Wonder Woman and Big Barda. This, like, I know I'm fast-forwarding a little bit through the movie, but they go and have to fight the Furies. So Big Barda was part of the Furies. She went away from doing that. Her and Wonder Woman go to fight these Female Furies and Granny Goodness. It is probably one of my favorite action scenes in any of the animated movies.
It's the best animated fight scene ever.
It's,
in my opinion, as well.
It's
far and away.
Yeah, I mean, even just to talk about the choreography, like, you get a sense of, like, they have their own unique fighting styles. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, you can really
absolutely
tell, like, this is that character just from the way they're fighting. Like, Wonder Woman, I love one of my favorite moves that Wonder Woman does, and she does it quite frequently, is when she gets the lasso around them and then she like wraps her leg around it and then pulls back. I love that move.
Hell yeah.
Anytime she does it.
She does.
I like
There's
when
a-
she headbutts things.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a so it's the Furies in this case, because there's a few in the comics, but like in this it's Guillotina, Lashina, Mad Harriet, and Stampa, and they all have Noah mentioned like they are all just physically different kind of characters. There's like a sword one and a whip one and like a crazy Wolverine like one and a big fat one. There, and it makes for a really cool fight. And it's so like the sequence is so quick and well choreographed, like you said. And it's not just like punch, punch, punch. Every move is different, and every move is countered by a different move that makes sense and leads to the next logical sequence. It's so cool. Like that scene where Lashina does that, like it just throws her whip kind of thing, and then Wonder Woman catches it with her lasso and pulls her back and knocks her out. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway,
that whole
sorry.
fight scene is just, it's kind of chaotic in the way of you have two people fighting, they're outnumbered. So like they'll be fighting one and then another one will jump in to try to get them off guard and stuff. So it's just really well done. I love that scene. I mean, most of the fight scenes in this movie are very well done. And then to kind of go back to the story a little bit, after they get her back, all's fine. Superman decides to take Kara, which is Supergirl, to Smallville to, meet the parents, essentially. Well, of course, Darkseid shows up again and fucks up the Kent farm. He's like destroying the house, and like I can't remember the line that Martha says, but she's like, "Oh, we'll remodel it. It's fine." It's like, but so there's a big fight scene between Superman, Supergirl, and Darkseid, which ends with Kara opening up a boom tube and sending Darkseid back. So they don't like kill him or anything. They're just like, come back whenever you want later. So,
Well, he's just like floating in space or whatever.
no, they sent him back to Apocalypse.
No, it's like I watched it last night. Like there's a because they're worried. Like why didn't you? Because I think Superman's like, why'd you just send it back? And she says something to the effect of like, whenever he thaws out, and he's just like kind of.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, whatever.
Motionlessly, kind of. Yeah, I agree. I mean, like they should have put him on the source wall. That's like the big way to get Darkseid.
But that fight scene, there's a particular part in that scene. I love Kara in this movie. I thought they did a very good job of not making her super dependent on Superman, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like she was very much a well-rounded, fleshed out character by the end. And even just to go back to the fighting style, because they did it so well in this movie that, not to go back to the fighting styles in this, but Kara was trained by the Amazonians. So in the beginning of the movie, Clark kind of sends her to Themyscira with Wonder Woman. They train her, kind of raise her and teach her the ways of the world now. Bunch of clones of parademons attack, and then you get to see, them fight them and stuff. But with the fight between Darkseid and Superman and Kara fights like Wonder Woman, but I don't know, like she kind of makes it her own. She does unique moves. She's not necessarily like, punch, jab, dodge. She
flies more.
Yeah, well, she improvises a lot more. I think like that move where Darkseid does his Omega beams, and then she gets behind him, grabs his neck, and then flips him over. Do you know what part I'm talking about?
Yeah. It's she uses them like they're a homing beacon, like flies around him, like they follow him, and then like at the last minute she like, it's cool.
It's amazing. I love that one. Oh, I'll probably post it because it's so good. But yeah, I mean that's essentially what this movie's about. It's Kara getting introduced, Darkseid wanting Kara, Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, Big Barda being like, "No, bitch," and then happily ever after.
Well, there's an annoying thing about this movie, which is it is not a Batman Superman movie. It is a Batman Wonder Woman Superman movie.
Yes.
And that annoys me to no end. And they probably would do it differently now because of Wonder Woman's huge success. But it's a great example of how and again, this does not speak to the movie itself. The movie is really good and well executed or whatever. It's way more of a DC thing, but where it's sort of like they have these two characters, they cannot escape them, and even in opportunities where it makes so much logical sense to introduce and spotlight other characters, even from a marketing standpoint, they fail to do so. And Wonder Woman is the coolest part of this movie.
Hey, and Big Barda.
I mean, or at least,
how dare you?
No, absolutely. But I'm just saying she's so of the three big characters. What I'm saying, like she's such a standout part of the movie. It's just like Batman and Superman, Dawn of Justice, Batman versus Superman. Sorry, where Wonder Woman swoops in and is the coolest part of the movie. Almost everyone agrees.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I mean, I don't want to call it out too much, but like, if one thought this was sexist, they would not be wrong.
No, I mean, it was based off of the comic series, so it was Superman, Batman, the series,
I know,
in the comic, and then they had stories within it. So I mean, I get it. I mean, I agree, but I mean, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Big Barda, Apocalypse is a little too long.
It is, but it should strike you ironic that like this story is about Supergirl and the coolest character in it is Wonder Woman, and then it's called Batman and Superman. But they're in it and they're great. But I'm just saying it's always like irked me that like. But anyway, yeah.
All right, we're gonna do our round of final picks. So go on, Jeremy.
Oh no. Okay, so. I really struggled to figure out which one to pick because I like so many of these, and I finally settled on Crisis on Two Earths.
Interesting.
Yes, this came out. Oh, sorry. What's up?
I said nice.
Oh yeah, sorry. It came out in 2010. Producer again was Bruce Timm. Written by Dwayne McDuffie and directed by Sam Liu and Lauren Montgomery. And this has. All of the major, I can't remember the who actually. No, you know who does Superman's voice in this. It's the one you like,
Tim Daly.
Tim Daly, yeah. And it's got Kevin Conroy. Is that his name?
Yes.
I was going to say Michael Conroy. I don't know why.
My God.
Anyway, okay. And is it? It's Joker was Mark Hamill.
Oh my God.
Okay. Anyway. So, if you don't know the story, this is a kind of a mashup of two stories. Really, it's one story, which is Earth 2 in the comic books. But the name Crisis on Two Earths refers to, as comic readers will know, Crisis on Infinite Earths. Though it doesn't have much to do with that story. It's much more about
confusing.
Earth 2. Yeah. And Earth 2, of course, is the story, and I think we have more confusing. I think it's considered Earth 3. In DC's multiverse.
Yep.
But the idea is that there's a place where another universe that's very much like the one we know, and I'm just going to call it for purposes of ease, our universe, even though I think we know we don't live in the DC universe. Anyway, okay,
that's
so unlike our universe, well, yeah, exactly. Unlike our universe, their Justice League, called the Injustice Gang, is super evil, and they're actually in this, I think they're called the Crime Syndicate.
Yes, they're the Crime Syndicate.
Yeah, the Crime Syndicate. So the crime.
Did you say? Wait. Did you say the Injustice Gang?
Yeah. Where did I get that from? That's definitely a thing. No, I didn't make that up. What is that from?
Nothing.
No, it definitely is. No, I'm not. I know that this is the Crime Syndicate. I did not make up Injustice Gang. There's no way that I would have just been like, let me just. So anyway, the Evil Jamboree. The Evil Jamboree. Is that not right? Is that not the right one?
Go on.
Okay, listeners, let me know where I got Injustice Gang from. Anyway, okay. But yeah, so the Crime Syndicate, which is, they're mirror versions of like Bizarro, well, not Bizarro shit. That's a whole different thing. Anyway, they're evil mirror versions of our Justice League. And on their Earth, Lex Luthor is the remaining member of the Justice League, like the actual good characters or whatever. And he's desperately found the only thing left to do is travel to another dimension, which happens to be our DC dimension, and try to enlist the help of another. Good Justice League. He found one, and it's us. Okay. Anyway, and so basically, when the Justice League, who actually debate whether they're going to come help, and liberate the Lexes. It's so confusing how to talk about this because it's like the good Lex versus the bad Lex. Okay, anyway, so
our Lex versus their Lex.
Yeah, so they do decide to go over and save the evil Earth. Well, not the people aren't evil, but just their Justice League. You get it, and they're the crime syndicate. You get it. Anyway, and so once so they do decide to do that, but Owlman, who is the evil Batman, discovers that Lex has figured a way to map the entire multiverse, and then I'm not going to tell you yet what his evil plot ends up being, but I think one of the strong things about this movie is what Bruce Timm kind of gets about these things is that it's really just a matter of seeing the action sequences a lot of times, like seeing the comic books set to life. So if you create like a story that just kind of webs them together, then the audience, it's still going to be a really, really good experience. Now, again, I'm not saying that this has a weak plot. It doesn't. But the structure of this movie is very much just about bringing together, like stringing together action sequence A and B and C. Yeah, and that's what this movie very much does well. And it's because it's so fun to watch, like even before we get to the big seven against each other, Superman versus Ultraman, Wonder Woman versus Superwoman, things like that. Our main heroes fight the kind of like evil versions of like the Justice League B Squad, you know what I mean? Like Donna Troy and Lobo and stuff like that, but obviously like evil versions or something like that. And it's just really, really fun. And then what we find out is that Owlman has decided he, and I find this like a really interesting, I don't know, philosophical motivation for a bad guy to have. Once he figures out that the multiverse, for every decision anyone could make, it creates an entire new dimension, an entire new reality. He reasons that our every choice we make is meaningless because no matter what we do, we didn't do it elsewhere.
Right.
And so he wants to use the technology that Lex Luthor created to map the universe to go to the main universe, Earth, what they call Earth Prime in this, and he's going to destroy it, and that'll wipe out the entire multiverse.
Because nothing matters.
It's nothing. What's funny is that he's the ultimate nihilist, but unlike a good existentialist, he's not okay with it. He's not okay that the world doesn't have any meaning inherently. So he decides everybody gonna die.
I mean, accurate.
Yeah. Yes, and along that, everything's accurate except it doesn't matter. But it doesn't matter. Nothing matters, but it doesn't matter that nothing matters. Anyway, okay. So. So it's really cool because like the way they kind of structure these stories is like once he's doing that and that's the real threat, you still have the rest of the crime syndicates basically more conventional asshole motivations that have to be stopped. So you get good like Superman on Superman fights, Flash versus Johnny Quick fights, and it's just it's a really fun sort of movie to watch. I think that like the pacing is great in this.
This is the movie that Wonder Woman does the amazing elbow drop.
Yes.
And I love it.
She pile drives.
Yeah, I love it so much. Every time that's about to happen, I'm like, yeah, get it.
It's one of my favorite scenes in this. It's like, and it has so many of these, like, where Superwoman and her lackeys, who end up just being like kind of her version of the Marvel family. You know what I mean? They chase down Batman because they go over to the regular universe. Most of the beginning of this takes place in the evil universe. But she leads herself and three basically like Captain Marvel or Black Adam ripoffs over to our universe where they find Batman, who's alone, who stayed behind, and he's just working at the Watchtower. And he fights them at first with like classic Sigourney Weaver style cargo loader kind of thing for just a minute. And right before they kill him, he beams in some remaining Justice Leaguers. So it's like Aquaman, Black Canary, Black Lightning, Firestorm, and I'm missing somebody. But that's one. But just a bunch of like, they're like, oh, you're outnumbered. And he's like, think again, totally Batman style. And it's just a really fun moment. And I guess what I really love about this is it's just chocked full of those things. It's just chocked full of those cool moments, and the pacing's so good. You just have fun the entire time you watch this.
Nice.
Oh, and last thing I'll say, I hate James Woods as a person. I legitimately do. If you know anything about James Woods, he's an asshole. But he plays Owlman in this, and he steals the show. He is such a good villain. So I'll throw that out there. But yeah, that's Crisis on 2. A strong recommendation. You're kind of like the tempo's up on this, and you'll enjoy it the entire time.
Oh no, my turn.
Yep.
All right.
Wow,
so
that's very exciting, Kayla. Oh no, my turn.
I'm prepared. So the one I chose, for me, the decisions were actually quite easy once Jared picked Under the Red Hood, which one I want to do. I chose to do Flashpoint Paradox. As a comic reader, I find it very annoying most of the time when they're like, this universe is over, time to reboot everything, and you get origin stories all over again, and everything is different, and it just feels like a bunch of character development swept under. That being said, Flashpoint Paradox, I thought, was a very unique, interesting way of ushering in the age of the New 52 comics. At least that's what Flashpoint the comic did. The Paradox is a great movie adaptation of that story. The movie's directed by Jay Olivia, produced by James Tucker, and written by Jim Keurig, based off Flashpoint, written by Jeff Johns. So
I'm so happy you picked this one, and I'm so happy you like it.
I'm surprised you didn't pick this one.
Well, you did, and I was
Me
like,
too.
"Ooh, I want to hear this."
Barry Allen fan.
I was going to.
But yeah, basically the premise is the Flash has to collaborate with a non-existent Justice League in an alternate universe to reverse an altered timeline and avoid a war between Aquaman's Atlantis and Wonder Woman's Amazons. It's pretty intense. Here we go. So, I mean, it basically starts like any other day would. A bunch of Flash's rogues break into the Flash Museum. He has to stop them, and with the help of the Justice League, he does. But Thawne, while he's leaving, taunts Barry about not being able to save his mother. One of his biggest regrets, if you've ever listened to any of Noah's conversations on this podcast, you'll know Barry Allen's story.
His mom died. Dad got blamed for it. He became Flash. There you go.
So the next day when Barry wakes up, he discovers he's in like a completely new world. His powers are gone. His mom is alive. His wife is married to another person. The Justice League doesn't exist. It's quite traumatizing for poor Barry. And also, minor thing, Aquaman is and his Atlantean forces have basically destroyed Europe. Wonder Woman is conquering the United Kingdom, and they're now at war with each other. You know,
It's awesome.
It's so cool.
It is really cool, but terrifying to wake up in that world. And you basically find out, like, one of the main curiosities is why they're at war. Yikes. Sorry, Noah. I got to talk about it a little.
Oh, no.
So, Wonder Woman murdered Aquaman's wife, Mira. When Mira discovered that Aquaman and Wonder Woman were having a secret affair. And Mira confronted Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman thought decapitation was punishment for questioning why she was having an affair with Aquaman. So.
And now she wears Mira's crown.
That's so
And
fucked
now
up.
she wears Mira's crown.
Like
the
a trophy.
ultimate-
I wear it to honor her.
Oh, not even
what
to
she
mention, she took Mira's head to Aquaman and threw it at him, threw it to his feet.
Yep.
It's so fucked up.
It is really fucked up. That's a really good summary of what Flashpoint Paradox is. Highlights are alternate reality, which is always super cool to see alternate strange versions of your beloved heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the highlights of this movie is honestly just how dark it gets. Like, seeing your beloved heroes die, like Shazam and Mira and Steve Trevor.
Yep.
I mean, like, even Deathstroke, Lex Luthor, and Black Manta die. Like, it's just really gruesome and dark, and Wonder Woman and Aquaman are just like, murder! And sometimes they murder your faves.
This podcast makes me want to like defend Wonder Woman too much. I don't know what that is.
Mm.
Because I'm like, that they love to make Wonder Woman evil and shit.
I mean,
And
she
for
was
no reason.
legitimately evil in this one. They both were stupid in this one.
No, but it doesn't make it like it's the same thing with Injustice where Superman goes bad and it's like, okay, Lois got killed. And then they're like, but Wonder Woman would become evil just because she saw Superman become evil. And it's similar in this where it's like,
not what happened, but I get what you mean.
I mean,
that is what happened.
I know
It doesn't
it's an
make-
alternate reality, but I agree. Wonder Woman is probably one of the most like steadfast moral characters. I don't see her doing any of this behavior, but in this universe, it's really terrifying. to see her do that.
Yeah, she's cool as shit. No question.
I mean, like Barry's even tortured by Thomas Wayne's Batman in this universe, and then he gets torched by lightning trying to recreate the incident, and it doesn't work. And then he has to try again
Twice.
It's just really dark.
Yeah.
Overall, it's honestly just really fascinating to watch someone as pure as Barry Allen try to navigate this terrible alternate dimension. He realizes that it was a version of him that went back to save his mom that changed the timeline, and then when he goes back to stop himself from saving his mom and creating this timeline, everything is kind of changed back. He wakes up in a world very, very similar to the original one, but slightly different, and that's how they introduced the New 52, which I think, in terms of having to put up with, starting all over, that's a pretty interesting way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought, the comic is massive. And, with all the tie-ins and stuff, that's exactly it. This is just a great way to give an excuse to restart things. Like, yeah, after it was kind of messy or whatever, but I thought it was a fantastic way to end it without doing, like, a crisis type thing. It was an interesting way to kind of usher it in. One of the, outside of that, the reasons why I love this story so much too, is because it is so fucking confusing with the timeline, and it's exactly like a Flash comic. That's what you get with Flash stories. And because you find out that because he went back in time, and because he did this, he created the lightning bolt to give him his powers, but if he gave him his powers then, and then created the Speed Force, Speed Force was created at a specific time, but also existed all the time? And also you find out his arch enemy killed his mom. It's just, it's sad. And it's really good.
Yeah,
basically just torture porn, watching Barry Allen suffer the whole minutes.
And I agree with Kayla. I like this better than the reboot.
Yeah,
I think I like the story of the reboot better than the fact that they did the New 52 is this massive rollout, so there are some amazing stories within the New 52. There's no question about that. But also that they did a reboot like that just kind of sucks, and it was just I think for a lot of fans, just kind of annoying.
The whole thing
for what you mentioned.
Just a kind of side note, but also be in the same conversation. The whole New 52 thing. It was whatever. It's fine. Whatever it is. And then they did Rebirth, and New 52 is supposed to be addressed in Rebirth, which it kind of is and kind of isn't. But Doomsday Clock is supposed to answer why, all of this is happening and stuff. But yeah, it keeps getting delayed. So it's y'all executed New 52 great as far as ushering it in. It was a great story. A lot of people love the story. But then to end it in such a kind of unorganized and shitty way of keep pushing these comics back, every 4 months we get an issue, maybe, oh no, we're going to push it 6 months. It's okay, guys, you would think that hyping it up so much and making these big sprawling stories and then the ending is just kind of falling apart. It kind of makes me sad.
They didn't have a reason in story to do any of it.
No.
They did it for sales.
Yeah.
So they have to ad hoc figure out what the reason would have been if there was one.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Again, I'm not that against it. But anyway, the point is this story's really good.
Yeah. I love it so much. I'm so glad you picked it, Kayla.
Yeah, it's a good comic and a good adaptation of the comic. So I gotta mention it.
Yay. All right.
And that end run where everybody dies, that is why do we like watching that?
I don't know.
Because everything
It's so
dies.
enjoyable.
It's so fascinating watching Shazam be murdered.
I know.
All right.
And I
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so we're going to continue this Elseworlds train. And my pick is, I just realized I picked a Batman one. I don't know why I just realized that. Okay, Batman Gotham.
Batman.
Yeah, Batman Gotham by Gaslight. I picked this one because it's very different from a lot of the other ones they've done, but it still has the whole, like, what if your heroes were in a Victorian era Jack the Ripper story? Well, this is what this is.
Yeah, you know that old question.
Yeah. So I do want to point out one thing with this story. You get, so there's people in Batman's universe that are in the story. It's like, it's a Victorian era Gotham City. So you see Poison Ivy. She looks great. She is an exotic dancer. So it's like, okay, well, she's not doing too great. And she doesn't have her powers. So that also sucks. But one of the first times you see Batman, he's saving like this couple or whatever that's getting robbed by 3 orphans. And these 3 orphans' names are Dickie, Jason, and Timmy.
Little Tim.
Little Tim. So like, it's the Robins, but they're like on the wrong side of the tracks. Like,
he call the bad guy that like is the Robin Wrangler or whatever. I don't know what you call him.
it's Big Bill Dust.
Yeah, he calls him his cock robins, which I understand is kind of a Dickensian expression, but still funny. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so the story is centered around Jack the Ripper is essentially murdering people. Selena Kyle plays a big part in this movie. She she wants to know essentially what keeps happening to women because she protects, the women of the night that she has in her. Is harem a good word to say, or is that not? Like, is it?
No, that's not a good word.
What is a good word to say with, like, I mean, they're exotic dancers and sex workers, and she's kind of like
a stable of whores.
Anyway,
I think that's ironically better than harem.
Yeah, I think so. So anyway, she essentially goes to Jim Gordon to plead and understand why this isn't being solved, because Poison Ivy gets murdered, it's really, did either of you watch this one?
I just watched it last night.
Want to.
Yeah, you would love it, Kayla. Like yeah. When Poison Ivy gets murdered, it's pretty brutal. Sorry,
Kelly, you'd love it. Poison Ivy's brutally murdered.
That was like a separate sentence to this.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm going to spoil it for you, Kayla, because it's a pretty big twist and it's really good. Essentially, Catwoman is trying to figure this out. She goes toe to toe with Jack the Ripper. Batman comes in and saves her. Pretty much you find out at the end of the day that Jim Gordon is Jack the Ripper. And yeah, big twist. You don't expect it. There's a point when it's so well written, it's so well executed. There's a point when I think it's Batman or maybe Selena Kyle. They go to it's Batman. He goes to Jim Gordon's house, and that's where he finds out that he's Jack the Ripper, because his wife has like all these scars on her, and she's like a sympathizer for Jack the Ripper because Jack the Ripper is killing these women because it's a sin to be a woman. So you have this like deranged Jim Gordon's wife pretty much praising her husband for treating women for their sins as women. It's so dark and heavy. It's so good.
It's also, the biggest mystery is, why is Jack the Ripper in Gotham and not London?
I mean,
that'd be the bigger one.
It all looks like London, Victoria.
No, they're in the New World.
Yeah.
Like they talk about it. They're in the America, but it's like a Jack the Ripper copycat or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an Elseworld story to like, tell the story of this. There's like there's a lot of like kind of funny, weird things that happen in it. Like Selena Kyle makes a bat signal kind of by accident. So like something falls onto like the spotlight and it gets turned on and it looks like a bat, and then Batman's like, oh, I gotta go over there. So like, there's some goofy stuff, but it's a very good like murder mystery, whodunit era piece.
It is super dark because it's like it's like the idea of changing the basic fundamental moral alignment of one of the most beloved characters was, I think, a stroke of genius, especially since it's an Elseworld. So you know what I mean? Like,
there's forgiveness.
Because we don't. Yeah, we're not. You know, it's not like you're guaranteed that, like, you know, the characters are going to be different, but you're not guaranteed that they're going to be like, you know, the good ones are going to stay good or whatever. And to find out that Jim Gordon is the greatest villain in Batman history, whore hater, or whatever.
No, he just didn't like women. It was a sin to be a woman. A lot like what they thought Jack the Ripper was doing. So, which I thought was cool.
It was so he hold on. Sorry, I was getting a call. It's so like dark and awful. Like, like at one point, and he's just what do you call it? Like obsessed with not liking prostitutes.
Yeah.
Because at one point it's like, what about you? He was like, what about your wife? And then Jim's like, wives are the greatest whores. Like, okay, you're really stretching it now. That's really at that point.
Yeah, I mean that
doesn't mean
that's pretty much what you have. But I love that Selena Kyle was right there to like punch him in the face for it. I love it. I mean, it's so there's so many good
I love the Victorian aesthetic, so I'm surprised I haven't checked this movie out yet.
Yeah, it's so good.
And
then
the fighting in it is fun too. Sorry, go ahead now.
Yeah, I mean it's really good. I love how, because since it's Victorian and it's kind of steampunky, like even like his grappling hook looks different. Like it's just really cool to see some like subtle changes to things. Like Catwoman has a top hat on most of the time. Batman has like a high collar, even though he has his cowl on. Like it's really cool to see this.
he has what I like to call the trench cape.
Yeah, because it's like a trench coat but a cape. It's two in one. Trench cape. It doesn't have any buttons in the front.
And because it's Victorian era, they fight like they do like old style boxing.
Yeah, with their fists kind of pointed towards them.
Yeah, like that Notre Dame mascot or whatever. And it's great. It reminds me of Henry Cavill in Mission Impossible 4. You know, the way he kind of fought. Like loaded his guns or whatever. Yeah.
Yep, that's an amazing movie. Watch that movie too, guys. Henry Cavill in that movie is amazing. Okay, so that's Batman Gotham by Gaslight.
We get it. You have a crush on Henry Cavill. I mean, moving on.
Everybody does. So I think that's it, right, guys? We don't have any reading recommendations except for go watch these 6 movies we just recommended to you, or tell us which ones you like the best. So, thanks, guys. Right?
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at The Phantom Zone Pod for more podcast updates.